In northern British Columbia, there stretches a chunk of highway. Some of you may have driven it from Prince Rupert on the coast, sort of about halfway up the province, maybe a little lower, from Prince Rupert on the coast, and it stretches to Prince George inland, and then it meanders over to Edmonton. And it's part of the Trans-Canada Highway. It's called Highway number 16. And Danielle and Kins and myself, we've driven good part of that highway, that stretch of highway. Did a few years ago when we were up in Northwest Territories and in Alaska. And you know, I have to confess that as I drove that section of highway, it never even registered with me at the time that we were driving along an infamous piece of highway in the Canadian landscape and culture. It's known as the Highway of Tears. And halfway between Prince Rupert on the coast and Prince George inland, there lies a community called Terrace. And just outside of Terrace, there is a First Nations community. They're called the Kitsum-Callum First Nation. And recently, a group of youth from the Kitsum-Callum First Nations, with the encouragement of Nwe Jinan, a non-profit organization that goes into schools and tries to foster youth and childhood empowerment. What they do is, Nwe Jinan, they bring in a mobile recording studio, and they teach the students about the whole art of creating music and producing videos and the whole like. And they went into this particular school, and the young people in this school started producing a whole series of videos and music videos. So they created their own music, they did their own production, and the videos are created around the theme of First Nations, Aboriginal, Indigenous culture, and learning to recognize and value their own culture. And the students ended up deciding that they would like to do a video based on that particular chunk of highway along which they live. A lot of the people who live along that stretch of highway, and a lot of the Indigenous people, don't have a lot of money. Some of them live in conditions of poverty, and very often they are required to hitchhike along that section of highway. And that is the section of highway that many of you will have known, along which a very high proportion in terms of the relative Canadian culture, a high proportion of girls and women have disappeared or been murdered, right? So I thought that I would show you initially this morning this video that this group of students from the Kitsum-Callum First Nation produced along this theme of the highway. Now, the words are a little tricky to understand. The words are words of empowerment. The words are words of uplifting their culture and their nation, but you'll get the drift of the story, okay, in terms of listening to it, even though the words you might not get them fully, but you'll get the drift of the story. I need to warn you in advance, there are a couple of scenes in the video that are heartbreaking. So just be prepared, and I don't know if there are young people here that just be aware of that. Yeah. So let's give this a listen. Okay.
through rough times, see the struggle on my face. Losing motivation, been losing my way. Will this ever stop? I'm looking for a change. Thinking to myself, I need to be brave. Seen too many sisters taken from my home. My heart is breaking, my hands are shaking. 'Cause I feel scared inside. I won't let it show and they won't take my pride. Life was hard, didn't choose this way. Had no strength to lose my faith. My heart was torn, couldn't find my place, found my escape. Every time I prayed, sometimes cried. I wish I died and prayed to the Creator for a different life. I was born here and want to live it right. The pain we have, need to give it light.
Been upset in situations and the aggression comes and goes. I'm bothered by how my nation has been bullied and controlled. Living here has been so hard and there's a road that leads to tears. Will the promises come through or will the lies continue here?
There's a highway of slums, take us to the promised land. There are many who are lost. We've been waiting on this chance. We feel like it's going downhill. Just slow down. Give time money skin. We can hold on and be proud and bring hope back to where we live. Learn to stand tall and show respect. Appreciate my loved ones and hold my head up high. I'm not afraid of feeling pride. Try to listen close so you can learn about a healing tribe. No drama in my heart and in honor of the missing. I will not be torn apart from the way that I've been thinking. I found a little courage and made all my decisions. Respect is what I'm learning and I'm trying to be the difference.
My life has me feeling good. I feel I could go places. We stay connected and hang out. My school is where I feel safest. Any fear that I may have disappears when I am journeying. Friends and family help me out. They bring me up when I'm struggling.
Memories of a stolen past with a bright future, no going back. Let's build a home where we can hope and laugh. An elder told me that. Let's be a voice who remain in silence. The youth of today ain't afraid of rising for the missing women who are facing violence. There's a road of clumps, let's change and find
There's
it.
a highway of slums, take us to the promised land. There are many who are lost. We've been waiting on this chance. We feel like it's going downhill. Just slow down. Give time money skin. We can hold on and be proud and bring hope back to where we live. Break through the cycle. There's only one way, singing. If you're looking for some courage and you're searching for some strength, sing. We're mindful of our culture, we're protectors of our world, singing. We respect all living things and we're defenders of the earth, singing. There's a highway of slums, take us to the promised land. There are many who are lost. We've been waiting on this chance. We feel like it's going downhill. Just slow down. Give time money skin. We can hold on and be proud and bring hope back to where we live. There's a highway of slums, take us to the promised land. There are many who are lost. We've been waiting on this chance. We feel like it's going downhill. Just slow down. Give time money skin. We can hold on and be proud and bring hope back to where we live.
Diane shared with me just at the back of the church, it's almost like we're getting a sense of something because of the technological breakdown here this morning, a sense of something through a veil. And maybe that's not an inappropriate comment for us at this point in time because we really don't fully see or get the depths of what is happening with First Nations and indigenous peoples in our country or around the world. Last week, I spoke about how the United Church of Canada at large has been, over the years, growing into a dawning realization of the impact that our church and all churches have had on the unfolding of Aboriginal culture and life within this country. And we recognize that the churches, as well as the wider culture, have played a significant role in undermining and destroying the indigenous sense of self-worth regarding their culture and their spirituality, right? And the whole residential school legacy, we recognize how many young people have suffered dreadfully through that misguided effort by the Canadian culture and the churches to provide education to young people. And this morning, there are so many technical and legal issues related to how do we start to address this imperialist and colonial legacy that the churches have participated in and that the Canadian culture continues to participate in. And I'm not particularly qualified to address those kinds of legal issues, but what I really wanted to address with you this morning was I simply wanted to help us begin to realize the importance of opening our hearts to the sorrow and the challenge that has faced Indigenous peoples in this country in the past, and that they continue to deal with as a result of that past legacy, and which isn't done with yet, okay? And that's why I particularly wanted to show this video that has to do with the Highway of Tears. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission produced 94 recommendations regarding how we can start to address the past colonialist and imperialist legacy between ourselves and the Indigenous people of this country. And many of those, the recommendations cover an entire spectrum of issues from health care to housing to engagement in sports to education, to the justice system, crosses all sorts of layers. But number 41, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendation number 41 is the one that has captured the most attention in the country at this point in time, and is the one that's led to the National Commission dealing with murdered and missing Aboriginal women and girls. And let me read for you exactly what recommendation 41 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission says. It says, "We call upon the federal government, in consultation with Aboriginal organizations, to appoint a public inquiry into the causes of and remedies for the disproportionate victimization of Aboriginal women and girls. The inquiry's mandate would include investigation into missing and murdered Aboriginal women and girls, links to the intergenerational legacy of residential schools." So this is one of the ongoing circumstances that continues to permeate in our Canadian culture, that there is a disproportionate number of Aboriginal girls and women being subjected to horrific violence in this country, all right? And that is a direct result of the colonial, imperialist, racist kinds of attitudes of the past that, although most of us in this room would not share, continues to permeate and exist within the wider culture at large. Wikipedia has a good way of summarizing that whole situation. It says, referring to Indigenous girls and women, "As a group that has been socially, economically, and politically marginalized, Indigenous women have been frequent targets for hatred and violence. Underlying factors such as poverty and homelessness, contribute to their victimization, as do historical factors such as racism, sexism, and the legacy of colonialism. And the trauma caused by abuses under Canada's residential school system also likely plays a role. Indigenous women are between 3 and 4 times more likely to be victims of violent crime than other women in Canadian culture, and the violence they face is often far more severe. It is believed that in Canada there are about 4,000 missing and murdered Indigenous girls and women whose deaths have not been resolved. The official figure is 1,200. The larger number is actually, they think, closer to 4,000. Where's Gloria Churchill? She's here somewhere. Gloria, you sent me this powerful, powerful image that was created by Jonathan Labalois, who is a Mi'kmaq artist. He's located in Gaspé, Quebec. And he created this beautiful work of art titled Still Dancing, which he donated to the Montreal Native Women's Shelter to raise awareness of the murdered girls and women. Can we have that picture up? Isn't that just a stunningly beautiful image? And so the robe that the young woman is wearing is covered with all the pictures of all these women who have been daughters, spouses, mothers themselves, whose deaths have not been resolved within this country. And it truly is a blight in our Canadian culture. There's another, so that's one of the circumstances that continues to exist within this country as a result of the past tradition of relating to Aboriginal peoples in this country, that still, its impact still permeates through our country and still moves forward. In November, there's another area, and there's another area too, and that is our relationship to Aboriginals, First Nations, Indigenous people of this country with regard to land, okay? Land and spirituality. It was interesting, I was quite struck by a ruling that came down from the Supreme Court of Canada last November regarding the Jumbo Glacier Resort in the Kootenays in BC also. And so there's an independent large corporation that wants to build a huge ski resort in a pristine area of British Columbia that is considered sacred land by the Katunaksu Nation in that province, okay? And the Katunaksa people say, we haven't resolved the land claims issues with regards to this land, and on top of that, this is spiritual land for us. And so the Supreme Court, though, heard the case, but they rejected the case, okay? The Katunaksa believe that the project will drive, now listen to this, will drive grizzly bear spirit from Katamuk, the traditional name for their spiritual territory, and permanently impair their religious beliefs and spiritual practices. Interpreting the scope of religious protections under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Supreme Court said that those protections include freedom to hold such beliefs and manifest those beliefs, but do not extend to the protection of sacred sites. They said, now listen to this, the Supreme Court said, we arrive at these conclusions cognizant of the importance of protecting Indigenous religious beliefs and practices and the place of such protection in achieving reconciliation between Indigenous people and non-Indigenous communities. The 9 justices were unanimous in the decision to reject the Katunaksu appeal on grounds of public interest. But 2 justices took a broader view and they had a dissenting opinion. This is what the other 2 justices say. The 2 wrote that religious beliefs in grizzly bear spirit would, if this project goes ahead, become entirely devoid of religious significance, and accordingly their prayers, ceremonies, and rituals associated with grizzly bear spirit would become nothing more than empty words and hollow gestures if the project were to go ahead. They believe that the project interferes with Katunaxa's ability to act according to their religious beliefs and practices in a way that is definitely more than trivial or insubstantial. So the interesting thing that you pick up on those two statements is, on the one hand, the 9 Supreme Court justices say, yes, we should be engaging in reconciliation with the indigenous people of this country. Their spiritual beliefs have value. They have profound significance for them. We need to respect those and uplift those. And then on the other hand, they say, but we're not going to do it. All right? It just really, really struck me. So there's an ongoing bias within our culture as well, because we have a vested interest. We have a vested interest as a dominant culture in holding control over lands and the economic activity that comes from lands. We have a vested interest in actually not fully engaging in a profound and deep reconciliation with indigenous peoples around the land. So 2 circumstances regarding women, indigenous women, and our relationship to the land and Aboriginal spirituality in this country. Indigenous people really appreciate the passage from Scripture that Debbie shared with us earlier, in which Paul indicates that all of creation is groaning as though trying to give childbirth to the vision that God has for creation. All of creation, including people, and it's quite striking because you don't see a lot of this in Scripture, but including the land and the earth itself. They like that passage because they recognize that all of us together need to work together to move into a healthier vision of how creation is called to be. Okay? I ask you right now, in all likelihood, what is healthier for the land? Is it to put up a ski resort, or is it to protect the grizzly bear spirit and the beliefs of the Katunaxa people in that spirit? It's, in a sense, it's like the indigenous people are actually trying to protect the land and the earth for all of us, right? For all of us. And they need our support and help in terms of dealing with the racist, imperialist kind of culture and attitudes in our society that continue to lead to the death of so many Aboriginal women in our society. We need all of us to work together to see that we, all of us, reflect and represent the light of this candle, the light of this spirit. A large part of why I wanted to show you, and I still had a short video, and Paul, I don't know if this, I won't show this next video if it doesn't work, but I'm struck by how we need to recognize value in one another, and that when we recognize the presence of spirit in one another, all of us together, all of our lives and the whole world will be healthier for us all. I think I'll pass on the last video. Oh, is it there? Oh, that's the original video, I think, Paul, is it? Or is this the second one? The original? The second one. So,
Highway of Tears,
as you watch this one,
northern British Columbia.
I want you to think about the young people,
From Prince Rupert to Prince
okay?
They say there's over 40 people who
Crank
have
up the
gone
volume.
either murdered or missing on this highway. It has affected many families in this region. The school in Exagilica sits directly on this highway.
I want you to look at the faces of these young people. And what do we want for these young people? What would God want?
Will this ever stop? I'm looking for a change. Thinking to myself, I need to be brave.
I was introduced to Nwegianan through First Nations Schools Association when I went to a principal professional development workshop. And their music that they had been doing with some Cree youth back east was introduced to us. And I was very impressed with the quality of the music. And when I found out that the students themselves had written the pieces, I was extremely pleased to hear that. It's quite unusual for students to be participating in music opportunities where they actually get to write the pieces themselves. Normally they're asked to learn pieces that are written by other people. Our youth are ready to engage in using new technologies to move forward in their understanding of themselves, their culture, the local issues, and to build their educational experience using technology. The students have grown a lot since we started this project. I've noticed that they've grown in confidence, they've grown for themselves, they have grown in their collaboration with each other, and some of them they've just become best friends as a result of this. And I've seen them become more committed as advocates for issues that are of critical importance for this area.
My heart is breaking, my hands are shaking, 'cause I feel scared inside. I won't let it show and they won't take my pride.
Life was hard, didn't choose this way. Had no strength to lose my faith. My heart was torn, couldn't find my place, found my escape. Every time I prayed, sometimes cried. I wish I died and prayed to the Creator for a different life. I was born here and want to live it right. The pain we have, need to give it light.
Been upset in situations and the aggression comes and goes. I'm bothered by how my nation has been bullied and controlled. Living here has been so hard and there's a road that leads to tears. Will the promises come through or will the lies continue here?
There's a highway of slums, take us to the promised land. There are many who are lost. We've been waiting on this chance. So if your life is going downhill, just slow down. Here it's harmony's skin. We can hold on and be proud and bring hope back to where we live.
Learn to stand tall and
We've lost many women and men to this, and I really don't want to see any of it happen again.
Colleen has brought my dream to life because I've always wanted to be professionally recorded, and the song choice was amazing because the Highway of Tears has affected my family.
I think it's extremely important for us to realize that this particular project has brought more than just awareness of a very important issue. It has brought awareness of how the students can use technology to empower themselves, to be confident, to build relationships, and to become really engaged in things that really matter to them, and to share that with us, and for us as educators to learn from them in this process as well.
It was an incredible journey to make the video and to create the lyrics for the song with like some of the kids from our school and with David and Andre. Like I liked how all of us, because we didn't really talk that much, but then I felt like the video brought us together. And it also brought the word about hitchhiking and how dangerous it may be, like it could risk your life.
If you're looking for some courage and you're searching for some strength, sing. We're mindful of our culture, we're protectors of our world.
Tug, where are you? Morris Tugwell. There you are. So Tug sent me a quote this last week. Remember last week I mentioned to you that in the United Church of Canada crest, we now have the Mohawk words that all may be one. And in the Mohawk tradition on the United Church crest, we have all my relations, referring to that sense of we're only all well when we're all in a process of unity and oneness with each other. And Tug sent me this quote this week. I think you gave this to me, didn't you? And it might have been somebody else, but I don't know if it was Tug or somebody else. Anyways, in our group this week. I've been considering the phrase, all my relations, for some time now. It's hugely important. It's our saving grace in the end. It points to the truth that we are all related and that we are all connected, that we all belong to each other. The most important word is all. Not just those who look like me, sing like me, dance like me, speak like me, pray like me, or behave like me. All my relations. That means every person, just as it means every rock, mineral, blade of grass, and creature. We live because everything else does. If we were to choose collectively to live that teaching, the energy of our change of consciousness would heal each of us and also heal the planet. The key thing I wanted you to get out of today's talk was to see the voices, or to hear the voices and to see the faces of these young Aboriginal people. Young people who have been disempowered by poverty, a lack of good education, a lack of respect for their culture, the threat and fear of violence in their lives all the time. And what I want you to take away is their healing entails our healing. When they are healed and brought into a sense of self-empowerment, a sense of self-worth, then our wider culture is going to be healed. I've been just devastated, and I was going to talk about this morning, but by the Parkland, right, situation in the States, right? It ain't going to be Mr. Trump and the Republicans or the Democrats who are going to heal that crazy culture in the United States. It's young people and students who grow into a sense of their own empowerment, their own sense of need and urgency to do something about these adults whose minds are still so permeated by darkness, within whom the light exists, but for whom, whatever reasons, they can't let that light shine through them. These students you just saw are our Parkland students in Canada. When our Aboriginal young people, it's not just them, it's all of them, but when our Aboriginal young people can grow into health and we can find the way to empower them and to empower all of our Aboriginal people, then that's when healing will come to all of us. And that's when we'll find healing for the land, healing for our culture, dissension will cease, we'll all be able to move forward. Again, legally and technically, I don't have all the answers for that, right? But the first step, I am convinced, is that we learn to open our hearts to one another, that we learn to open our hearts to the pain and the suffering that have gone on in the lives, in this case, of our Aboriginal peoples in Canada, and that we learn to reach out to really evoke healing and to facilitate empowerment. The Spirit in me honors the Spirit in all of you and in the spirit of all the peoples of our country, and especially of the First Nations people of our country. The Spirit in me honors the Spirit in you and in them.
From the corners of creation to the center where we stand, let all things be blessed and holy. All is fashioned by your hand. Brother wind and sister water, mother
Thank you, that was beautiful. I'd like to remind everyone that we are standing and sitting and living and breathing on Mi'kmaq territory. I'm going to start with a very short excerpt from the speech that was reportedly given by Chief Seattle in 1854. Every part of this soil is sacred in the estimation of my people. Every hillside, every valley, every plain and grove has been hallowed by some sad or happy event in days long vanished. Even the rocks, which seem to be dumb and dead in the swelter of the sun along the silent shore, thrill with the memories of stirring events connected with the lives of my people. In all the earth, there is no place dedicated to solitude. At night, when the streets of your cities and villages are silent and you think them deserted, they will throng with the returning hosts that once lived among them and still love this beautiful land. The white man will never be alone. Let him be just and deal kindly with my people, for the dead are not powerless. Dead, did I say? There is no death, only a change of worlds. And this is a prayer poem by Carolyn McDade. Blessed the universe, long unwritten story, spirit in all things. Blessed the earth dance, born of burning, turning night to day around an ancient sun. Blessed the sea and sky, stars and rain that wash each soul in reverence and guide us home. Blessed all who buzz and hiss, talk, croak, and warble, all who push roots and shout green. Blessed all who pass breath between them. Blessed all that struggle for their right to be, that within each that will not lie down, that sings the song its heart must sing. Blessed the elders who call us deep. Blessed the young who deepen. Blessed the generations who love this world, faithful to its wonder. Blessed all who choose to live, whole and free, grateful among the blessed. Amen.
Our closing hymn this morning is Put Peace into Each Other's Hands. Let's rise in body or spirit as we are able and sing together.
thanks to all who made this service possible today. Especially a big thanks to Paul Reed back there, our tech guy. He spent, not only did he do a supremely great job today, but he spent all day yesterday rewiring this place for hearing aids and hooking up new equipment, and the man does above and beyond the call of duty. A reminder that the potluck lunch next week after the AGM, so please come on out, and also the supper and surprise this Friday at 6 o'clock. I'm going to end with a reading by Chief Noah Selth. This we know: the earth does not belong to us, we belong to the earth. This we know: all things are connected like the blood which unites one family. All things are connected. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the sons and daughters of the earth. We did not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand in it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. Peace to you all. Go out and spread the love.